I want to use this intro to like talk about theater etiquette and just like being good in a movie theater, because seeing this was probably one of the worst experiences I've ever had in a movie theater. Had nothing to do with the movie itself, just don't bring a loud kid. Please. I just need to get that out of the way because that was just infuriating for most of this movie. Either way, I did watch Blue Beetle. I should note that this is going to be a spoiler-free review and video as a whole. If you do want me to go into spoilers, which has more of my criticisms of the movie, honestly, things I weren't a giant fan of, but I am going to keep it vague for this video. I've always liked the character of Blue Beetle, mainly the Jaime Reyes iteration, mainly because that's who I saw in the Batman the Brave and the Bold series as a kid. On top of that, I'm also really good at him in Injustice 2. That's my claim to fame for that game, other than like saying that's one of my favorite games ever. But outside of those two things, I don't really know a lot about Blue Beetle. It's like a character, whether it's the Jaime Reyes iteration or Ted Kord, I just don't know anything about Blue Beetle. So going into the movie, I think this would have just been like a nice little surprise, like a character I don't really know about in a brand that I like, and I just think it would have been like that. Also, this may or may not be a part of the rebooted DC stuff. James Gunn has talked about like, oh, the character is gonna be a part of the DCU, but we don't know about this specific movie. So the main actor, Xolo Maridueña, I'm getting these pronunciations right. Apparently, he is going to jump over and be a part of the DCU, which is starting with, like, the next Superman in a couple years. I guess up until we have that clarification, this is going in both the DCU and the DCU playlists. I don't know. I also forgot to mention that this was filmed originally to go on HBO Max, but then apparently it was satisfying enough results to just send it to theaters. I don't really know the whole story behind it, but yeah, it's in theaters now. The story is basically we have Jaime Reyes. He just graduated college and is coming back to his home of the Edge Keys in Florida. And Kord Industries with Jenny Kord, played by Susan Sarandon, she is trying to find this thing called the Scarab, which is like a piece of technology that is trying to power, like, the Kord Industries' latest... They're trying to power their latest technological innovation, without getting into spoilers, and they need the Scarab to do it. Things happen, and somehow Jaime gets possession of the Scarab, and is now, whether he likes it or not, is the Blue Beetle. If I can summarize, like, the overall story in the one sentence, it's Shazam but better. Like, there's that whole thing with Shazam in those two movies, and I think I mentioned this in my review of Fury of the Gods, where there was the whole thing of the rest of the family not really knowing that all the, like, adopted children were superheroes. All the family finds out right off the bat, and I think that was a good move. I think that's what the Shazam movie should have done. I feel like that was a great move on Blue Beetle's part. As I said earlier, I think Xolo Maridueña is pretty great as Jaime. He has that great charisma leading man. This is the first time I have seen him in anything. He was in the Cobra Kai show, I know that, but I haven't seen that. This is the first time I'm seeing him in something. And he was pretty good in this. I actually really like the whole chunk of the Reyes family. I'm gonna shout out my favorites right now. Belissa Escobedo, I really liked as Jaime's sister. I thought they had a good dynamic, closer to the beginning of the movie, and it kind of popped up a little bit later. Damián Alcázar as Jaime's dad is also a really nice touch. I need to see what else Alcázar has been in, because he was really good in that. And in what feels like the first thing I had seen this guy in a while, George Lopez plays Rudy, the weird, eccentric uncle who has, like, conspiracy theories, and he was also pretty good in this. It's nice to see, like, George Lopez actually be good in something again. Bruna Marquezine, who is a pretty big star in Brazil, this is the first time I'm hearing her and does a pretty good job in this as well. I don't want to get into spoilers with that as well, because her character has big things to do with the plot. Susan Sarandon is fine as Victoria Cord. I don't really know. I liked Raoul Max Trujillo. Damn it. I liked him a lot as Victoria's side villain, as the side villain of the movie Carapax. I don't know, they never really established that relationship in this. Like, I don't think he's a bodyguard, but like, he's just kind of there. And even though I would have wanted him in a little bit more, I think Harvey Guillén also has a pretty fun role in this. I like to see him in more things, especially outside of like What We Do in the Shadows and having a great role in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish as well. A lot of the technical aspects here are actually pretty good, especially for a movie that was supposed to go on streaming. The Blue Beetle exoskeleton itself was like, well, it was a practical suit when it was just on there, and it looked fantastic. But also, like, with the little hits of effects that it has on it, looks really nice. I would actually say the only bad VFX in the movie is, like, there's some wonky backgrounds here and there. Like come on, you get that with a lot of superhero movies these days, but it's better than the Flash's effects. I also think the action here is pretty cool. It kind of leaned into, like, Power Rangers territory a little bit, especially with, like, some martial arts stuff, but it never got that silly in terms of Power Ranger. I think it still had a pretty serious tone to it. And to my knowledge, I think Xolo did all the stunts for this, so I think that's pretty impressive. I also want to shout out the score from Bobby Krilic, which, if you don't know who that is, the other works he had done were horror movies, specifically the last two movies from Ari Aster, Midsommar and Beau is Afraid. This is one of the coolest, like, scores I've heard this year. I didn't really expect it from something like Blue Beetle. As an entry in the DCEU, maybe it is, I still don't know. It's a fun entry. It's not one of the best ones, but it's definitely not one of the worst ones, because it's a competent movie. But in terms of a first DCU kind of thing, it kind of, like, I'm not comparing it quality-wise, but it kind of feels like Iron Man, in the way that, like, you don't have to have any prior knowledge. Sure, they mention a couple DC characters, but you don't have to have any prior knowledge to anything DC related to watch this, and I like that a lot. And I really hope this does well. There's not really a bunch of big movies coming out probably until the end of next month, so I think this will make some money. Overall, I think Blue Beetle is pretty fun. It's a nice little pick-me-up for DC after... Yeah, even though I liked The Flash, it didn't really do too well for some pretty big reasons. And overall, I think Blue Beetle is getting a more positive reception across the board than The Flash, so hey, DC can take a win at this point, so great. I think the direction from Ángel Manuel Soto is also pretty great. The action and also Xolo Maridueña's lead performance is pretty fantastic, and I hope all of these elements come back to play in the DCU. I'm gonna give Blue Beetle a 7 out of 10. I think it was alright. I think I'll enjoy it once it hits HBO Max, like, in a couple months probably. And honestly, who knows, I might like it more on a rewatch. Alright, what are your thoughts on Blue Beetle if you've seen it? Do you know this kind of character? Well, do you know Blue Beetle as a character, whether it's Ted Kord or Jaime Reyes? How did you feel about it? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!